From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm Vasilios. That is Sean Fazende. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review. You can find us wherever you listen to and watch your podcast. And if you happen to be watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the little bell notification button. You get an update every time we upload a new podcast. Sean Fazende, we are at Hump Day right here. It's a Wednesday. We're heading into week 2 of the NFL season. The New Orleans Saints slated to play the Carolina Panthers in Carolina on Monday Night Football. But before we get to that, last week we saw a video come out from last week's game. Derek Carr on the sideline, mic'd up for the Saints opening game against the Tennessee Titans. What did you make of that mic'd up session?
Well, first off, this is a Wednesday, but it's a different kind of Wednesday because we have a Monday night game this week. So throws the schedule a little bit off, and when you have a Monday night or a Thursday night game, it tends to do that. So your normal Wednesday preview that we would normally have in the slot, we're not going to necessarily have today because we're not getting into the locker room until Thursday, when we normally would on a Wednesday to get kind of the feel of the upcoming opponent. But have no fear, because Derek Carr is here in terms of providing content for this Overtime Podcast. And I've already told you guys that I follow the quarterback. It's what I do. I follow the quarterback. And when the quarterback gives us content, we're going to talk about it on this podcast. And you brought it up. The Derek Carr NFL Films clip that was released went Tuesday. It was released, or at least the clip we're going to talk about. There was another clip released actually just a few moments ago here on this Wednesday. And I think this, man, put it on a T-shirt. I think the Saints have their 2023 mantra. I really do. Sheed freaking run. Maybe just freaking run, or whatever, however you want to put it. But that perfectly sums up where the Saints currently are and just the mentality going forward. I mean, when I watched that, I watched it again, then I watched it again, then I watched it again. I mean, I've watched it quite a few times now just to get a sense of what I just saw. And usually mic'd up NFL films, it's usually pretty bland because they know they're mic'd up. They keep it to themselves. It's not usually crazy. It's usually pretty average. But Derek Carr's 45-second clip on NFL Films that was released, like I said, on Tuesday, just articulated the whole reason why. The whole reason why the vibe is different this season. You saw it in that 45-second clip. First and foremost, before the quote, he's telling everyone, go route to Rashid. Hey, give me another shot. Another go route to Shaheed. Before he actually tells Rashid the quote of freaking run, he's like, be ready for a go route. He's telling everyone, RC, the quarterback coach, Pete Carmichael, even Jameis Winston and Sheed, about the go route. And everyone bought in immediately. Everyone trusted his instinct. Everyone trusted his feel for the game at that moment. I can't even begin to tell you how much this organization has missed that ability to trust that player in that situation at quarterback. They have been yearning for it. First game, he brings it up, and what happened? Everybody gravitated to him. Even his backup quarterback, who was once the starter here, gravitated to him. At that moment, and that's raw, it's real, it's an intense situation. Everyone is speaking the truth in that moment. They're not faking it for the camera in that moment. That's real. You can't fake it in those moments.
Not at all.
That was the natural gut reaction from Derek Carr and the natural gut reaction from the people around him, the important decision makers around him, the important people involved in that idea. Second, Carr's mentality was revealed. His mentality. Now, keep in mind, hard-fought game, defensive struggle. Only once they got into the end zone, they have battled all game long. It was a field goal fest. It's 16-15. They had just had a penalty. It was second and long. They got about half of it back on the throw to Michael Thomas, deep in their own territory. First game for Derek Carr in a Saints uniform. No hesitation, no doubt about it. Carr wanted to end it. He wanted to end it. That was his mentality. Mm-hmm. His mentality was, let's go win the game. Not play for field position.
Where have we heard that before?
Exactly. Not trust the defense because they played well. Not throw it at the sticks and throw a safe pass and maybe that way we'll kill the clock more and we'll be able to run some more time off. No. Let's go win it. He believed it was time. Derek Carr believed it was time, and everyone around him believed in him. And guess what? They delivered. They delivered. My friends, I've been telling you guys, you've been listening to this podcast, watching this podcast, watching our shows, reading our blogs. I have been telling you the vibe is different. The feeling is different. Look no further than that 45-second clip on NFL Films. Ooh. Because everything was everything that embodies the change was right there in front of you.
Yeah.
Everybody galvanizing around a guy they trust, and the guy they trust having the mentality of let's go win it, and they get it done. Look, it wasn't pretty. We've already established this. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't perfect. Ton of mistakes. We know that. Hard to win in the NFL, and they're 1-0 for a lot of reasons. But one of the biggest is the guy they all have faith in wanted to go win it, and they did win it, and they all rallied around him. And I think I don't want to make too much of it, too big a deal of it, but when I saw it, there was a reason why I kept rewinding and watching again. I was like, this is unbelievable. This is exactly what they wanted. I mean, it took all of 45 seconds to reveal itself. And, we've been talking about it, but they believe it in the locker room, but we don't get to see all of what they're talking about in the locker room as to why. But we saw it in that raw moment. That's why he's here, folks. That's why he's here, and that's why the organization feels like they can be not just a playoff team, but a contender in 2023.
Hey, when back on Monday when we did our last episode, we were talking about Derek Carr. You were talking about his footwork and how that's as close to Drew as we could possibly get. I mean, from the technical aspect to the mental aspect, now that we saw what we did see in that video, I mean, Saints fans, their excitement has to be through the roof.
Well, if you go look, and who knows, these are just the people that commented. They commented that all the clear Saints fans were extremely excited.
Thank you for all the comments, by the way.
Some were, on our, be sure to comment on ours because it helps with the algorithm and it really helps just engagement for us and for you guys as well. Comments on the post, whether it was Instagram, NFL Films, or Saints kind of reposting it on Instagram. The clear-cut Saints fans were all, oh, yes, inject this into my veins. This is what I want. This is my QB1. And then a few of them were like, Jameis is a good teammate. Because Jameis is saying, yeah, do it. Absolutely. Because he believed in it too. So I think it was a shot of life. I really do. I really think it was a shot of life. And you just don't realize how stale you become sometimes until you have someone breathe life into your organization again. And Derek Carr did it. He's just got the personality for it, and he's got just that presence about him. And 1 week, we know, and his resume is what it is, but I think 1 week in New Orleans and one moment in time, I think he represented exactly why the Saints wanted him here and why they were willing to do so much to get him here in New Orleans. I thought he delivered.
So we talked a little bit about Jameis, how he totally bought into what Carr was selling. Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about a team that could possibly buy into Jameis Winston himself. The New York Jets. Obviously, we saw Aaron Rodgers go down on Monday night with a torn Achilles. Zach Wilson, the guy there right now, who knows for how long. Do you think the Jets could make a play for the New Orleans Saints?
Okay, this is what I want you to do while we're talking. I want you to glance on Twitter to make sure nothing has changed because it could change any minute now.
Absolutely.
While we're doing this pod, because it's already Wednesday. They play Sunday. They need a backup quarterback. It's obviously going to be Zach Wilson this weekend, but they need a backup. I know they have another guy on the practice squad they're going to have to bring up, but at some point they have to make a decision. But as for the topic at hand, it was an obvious thing. I mean, pretty soon, right after Achilles tear from Aaron Rodgers happened, you saw the speculation involving Jameis Winston, which typically happens in a situation like this. Everyone around the NFL just does the natural protocol, the natural thing in terms of just, well, who could be available, and you just start naming realistic names. So the idea that Jameis Winston's name is out there is not a surprise. Side note, devastated for Jets fans. And I couldn't care less about the New York Jets. But that organization, that's just not fair, man. That's just not fair. I mean, 4 plays in, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and who just felt like he was in a great place mentally. 4 plays in to bust up his Achilles. That's just not fair. So I feel for you guys. But back to the topic at hand in terms of Jameis Winston. Like I said before, it's easy to throw his name out there. And if I'm the Saints, we've already had the topic before when it came to Jameis Winston. About possibly trading him. And we were all in on, hey, if you get a decent deal, do it. If I'm the Saints, I pick up the phone. If they call, I answer the phone. I listen. But I'm not in an automatic hurry to dump him. Has to be a good deal. When I say good deal, you gave up a 3 to get Teddy a few years ago here. That would be similar to what I'd be willing to get in return for Jameis Winston. You have the leverage in the situation. You don't have to make a deal. They do in that situation if they were to hone in on Jameis Winston being that guy. I'm still a little hesitant in believing that would be the case. But you definitely listen, but you don't be desperate. You don't be desperate. They're desperate. Mm-hmm. They're the desperate ones. They need the help. Regardless if Zach Wilson all of a sudden becomes the Zach Wilson they all drafted him to be and becomes the next MVP and all that's great stuff. They still need a veteran backup. They still need one until he can validate that trust. And plus, you need a backup in the NFL because, as we just saw, the starter gets hurt. So they're desperate, not you. I understand the mentality of, hey, get something for him. He probably won't be here next year because you got Jake Haener, who's on suspension, by the way, who also plays into this. And Jake will probably be your backup next year, or at least that'll probably be the initial plan. So, hey, get something for him. He's going to walk out the door for nothing at some point. I get that. But if it's like a 6th-round pick, I'm not sure that I'd be – because any 6th-round pick, I'm not sure it would be worth a next year 6 for a present-day quality backup who's got 75, 80-plus starts. I'm not exactly sure how many starts Jameis Winston has. So
plenty of touchdowns, too.
I get it, but I wouldn't be in a hurry to make that move. It would have to be the right move, and to me, it would have to be at least a 3rd-round pick. I'm not convinced, though, that of the options available, Jameis would be the one. A, you got to trade for him. And didn't they just make a big trade for Aaron Rodgers? So it's not like a whole lot of draft capital. Mm-hmm. B, you're going to be leveraged in the situation because the team you're trading with, it has the position of strength.
Yeah.
And then C, there's some players that you could potentially get off the street that you can get into. Matt Ryan's name was thrown out there. Colt McCoy's name was thrown out there. Carson Wentz was another one who seems fairly young, was thrown out there. For what they need currently, maybe that's I don't know. I don't follow the Jets. I don't have any read on Robert Saleh, the Jets situation. But in terms of how it would link to Jameis Winston, again, it could change by the time this podcast is over, and it may end up dating it. But if I'm the Saints, I'm not doing that deal unless it's the right one.
Absolutely. And before we get out of here, I wanted to ask, because now that we had all of Week 1 wrapped up for the NFL, I wanted to ask, outside of the Saints game, which was the game that caught your attention most over this past weekend? Because for me, it was that Monday nighter between the Bills and the Jets.
Well, that was a fantastic game. The way it ended, the way it all fell apart on Buffalo, the way it all fell apart for Josh Allen. So that was certainly a game that caught my attention for obvious reasons.
Feels like a cop-out.
You chose the last one of the weekend. I'm going to go with the first one of the weekend. I'm going to go Kansas City, Detroit. The Thursday game, by the time you get to this point of the week, it feels like so long ago.
Yeah, I know.
But let's not forget what Dan Campbell did. It's not easy to win on the night they're honoring the Super Bowl champs in their house on Thursday Night Football, Week 1. I don't care. I mean, it's a big deal that Kelsey wasn't there, sure. But Detroit came to play, and I think they're going to keep continuing to come to play week in and week out. So of all the ones, there was seemed to be a lot of 1-point games, right? On the Saints, the Broncos,
Parity
Raiders.
this weekend was crazy.
The Chiefs in Detroit.
Parity was crazy.
So, yeah, that's a good question. But I'm going to go with the first one, Detroit and Kansas City.
All right. Hey, any last thoughts as we make our way towards week 2 of the NFL
Yeah, well, Monday night game. Juan Kincaid will be on the road for this one, not me. It's normally me, but it'll be Juan. Juan is from North Carolina, so he'll make that trip. He'll go home and see his family, so kudos to him for that. But Madeline and I will be here for the normal game day routine. Watched a lot of film. Went back and watched that Panthers-Falcons game, so we'll have our thoughts this week on where I think the Saints can attack, and I think the matchup, as I watch it more and more, I think it really does favor the Saints, so we'll see.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. For Sean, I'm Vasilios. This is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, rate, and review. You can find us wherever you listen to and watch your podcast. Excuse me. We'll catch you guys next time on the next episode.